for our future as a country. So thanks to President Trump and Secretary Kennedy, for the first time, we're talking about root causes, both on a research basis and in terms of what we can do at every agency. And within the FDA, I do think there are things we can do to help empower people by facilitating this independent scientific review of devices and other ways to prevent chronic diseases with continuous glucose monitoring, continuous blood pressure monitoring, and healthy foods for children. If confirmed, my goals are very clear at the FDA. More cures and meaningful treatments for Americans, including diagnostics, healthy food for children, and rebuilding the public trust.
Great. I look forward to working with you on all those issues, as I'm sure many of the members of this committee do. One way that we can drive more efficiency and speed to market for things that can improve lives and hopefully lower costs is through technology. I know that I was involved with the Cleveland Clinic when they got the first quantum computer focused on healthcare research, and you use things like quantum and AI to drive discoveries, speed to market with these. Could you talk about how the FDA, under your leadership, would think about those things?
Thank you, Senator. I think there's a number of opportunities with AI right now that we have that we've never had before. We have an incredible opportunity to use AI to help reviewers in the review process, not to replace the human reviews, but to aid them and assist them in the same way that EKGs are read by AI devices that tell us normal sinus rhythm at the bottom of the EKG. Now, we still look at the rhythm, but it aids and it may help the efficiency among the reviewers. We can use AI also in drug design and drug development. Now, that's not something the FDA does, but the FDA can help provide data to help train machine learning models, to help design AI systems that can predict toxicities, adverse events, and even cures for some conditions. And finally, AI can be used to aid with data monitoring in a post-approval setting, so we don't learn 5 years after Vioxx is approved that 38,000 Americans died from it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Husted. And now Senator Markey.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm from Boston, the home of the world champion Boston Celtics. Good luck to the Cavaliers. But we'll have a little bet in June. You stated that you want to ensure that the FDA holds the gold standard of trusted science and transparency. In order for that to happen, the FDA commissioner must also uphold the gold standard for trusted science and transparency. In your financial disclosures, you disclosed that you made over $500,000 from Global Appropriateness Measures, LLC. The client list for that company includes companies that are interested in making money off of the healthcare system, insurance companies, hospital chains, private equity-backed companies. So can you tell the committee how much you made from those private equity and venture capital-backed companies?
Senator, first of all, thank you for the question, and I enjoyed our conversation prior to this hearing. I am very proud of my work at Global Appropriateness Measures. The purpose of the endeavor was to lower healthcare costs for Americans by reducing unnecessary surgery and medications.
No, and I appreciate that. Just for the record, can you just tell us how much you made from, the private equity and venture capital-backed companies?
So I have been a shareholder in Global Appropriateness Measures. I am fully divesting. I don't have the exact numbers at my fingertips, but they were all disclosed to the Office of Government Ethics, and they are all part of the disclosure system.
So was it in the millions of dollars or less?
Over the period of over the course of what period of time?
Over the period of time you had a relationship with them.
There was revenue of that company in the millions of dollars, yes. And I am one of the shareholders of that company. And I am very proud. The best way to lower drug prices in the United States are to stop taking drugs we don't need. So I do believe in the appropriateness of care, and that endeavor was designed to create software so we can monitor.
I appreciate that. We're just looking at the transparency issue. So I'm just trying to help you to be transparent here. So how much were you paid by insurance companies, including Devoted Health Services, an insurance company that primarily sells Medicare Advantage plans?
Yeah, that figure is in the Office of Government Ethics report. I don't have that exact number at my fingertips, and of course,
Was that in the millions of dollars as well?
no, that was far less, and that, again, I am a shareholder, so I did not, you know, I'm one of the shareholders of that company.
Well, I think the American people do deserve your full transparency about how you might be influenced by the healthcare industry, insurance companies, private equity, and venture capital funds, and that's what I'm trying to get at here.
Yeah,
just
all of
the
those reports will be public, Senator.
They will be public. They're not public at this point, so I'm not in a position to ask you about them, and that's why I'm asking you if you
Yeah,
would tell
Office
us
of Government Ethics releases it
No,
at
I
a certain point in
appreciate
time.
that, but it's not helpful for the confirmation hearing, which is essential in terms of the public understanding all of the potential, not actual, but potential conflicts of interest that might show up. The FDA is responsible for approving medical devices or drugs that may impact how much insurance companies pay or what they cover, the same insurance companies that do overcharge Americans and undercover their care. It will impact hospital costs and private equity. And you're coming into this role with relationships pre-existing that have a profit interest in the decisions that you will be responsible for making. That's why I'm raising these issues. Will you commit today to not participating in any decisions that would have an impact on known clients of global appropriateness measures during your tenure as FDA Commissioner?
First of all, Senator, I appreciate your enthusiasm on this topic. I am one of the biggest advocates that was involved in the health insurance industry transparency of the secret negotiated rates. So I'm a big with you. The recusals that I will be taking
Yes.
are 100% in line with the Office of Government Ethics recommendations, which were not to resign from everything, but I chose to resign from everything to ensure no appearance of a conflict of interest.
That's important for us to hear. And the same thing, will you commit today to not participating in any decisions that would have an impact on private equity and venture capital investors of those clients as well?
Senator, I commit to following the Office of Government Ethics agreement.
Well, again, it's just so important for us to understand this going forward because of obviously the increasing role that those sectors are now playing, and they will be attempting to influence FDA decisions. So that's the reason why I'm raising the questions, and total transparency is absolutely necessary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On that note, Doctor, you've been very transparent, right?
I believe so.
I mean, talk about that process. I mean, how transparent you have to be to get to this point today.
Well, there was a massive disclosure of basically every single share of everything that I own, and that process took a number of weeks, and I would describe it as a colonoscopy with a small bowel follow-through. And everything is out there, and basically I will have essentially no privacy when the Office of Government Ethics chooses to release that form. But that's okay. I'm proud of everything that I've done, and I'm more than happy to acknowledge that I've agreed to divest or resign from everything. And so I, again, was given the option not to resign from everything, and I chose to resign from everything because I want to ensure independence. This is not a job I'm taking to audition for my next job. This is a job I'm doing to serve the American public. I believe in more cures and meaningful treatments, healthy food for children, and rebuilding the public trust. So, Senator, I can commit to you that I am absolutely dedicated to that mission, and I am not there to audition for a future job.
Yeah, I appreciate that because this is so important. I mean, you've been nominated for this position because you're incredibly accomplished. Your background perfectly fits the role that you're about to take, and you bring experiences and success to the table to be the new head of the FDA and change it. Because you've talked about this. You mentioned in your testimony that healthcare has become too fragmented, too cold, and too corporate, right? I mean, and you're going to go there to shake that up and change that. The Make America Healthy Again movement that was a big part of giving this president a giant mandate with Secretary Kennedy and others who are coming to the table, the role that you're going to play is really important to that, to disrupt it. And I think we all agree that, I think the American people agree that the medical establishment, often condescending toward the American people, is something that we have to disrupt and change. Can you talk about how you're going to do that at the FDA?
Thank you, Senator. And I do agree 100% that for the first time ever, President Trump and Secretary Kennedy had moms that were Republican, Democrat, Independent come out and vote because they care deeply about the health of our nation's children. They want to see healthier food for children. They want to see an industry that has, they want to see an FDA that is independent of corporate influence, but at the same time working with partnerships around the country to facilitate not just be in a receive-only mode. So one of my goals is to ensure that the FDA maintains its scientific integrity and that we can do what we can to contribute to the Make America Healthy Again spirit.
Very good. Clinical and non-clinical testing are both very important parts of FDA's drug approval process. How do we modernize that process, modernize testing?
Well, first of all, there are steps in the regulatory process where we can take a look and ask, do we need to use the same processes that we've been using? Infant formula, for example, has had the same recipe for the last 40 years. And so with the exception of selenium, which was added in 2015, for 40 years we're requiring infant formula companies to use a standard recipe that was developed back when the food pyramid was misleading Americans and basically government misinformation. Can we take another look at that? Can we create other ways in which new products can be brought to market safely? Can we look at real-world data from European products? The more competition, the more resiliency in the supply chain and the lower the risk of a shortage in the future. So does an infant formula need to go through the same process as a new drug, or can we look at real-world data and work with the companies to figure out a smarter way that uses both trusted science and common sense, which is a theme I would like if confirmed.
I want to work with you on that. The FDA is starting to allow patients to choose whether they want prescription drug instructions on paper or digitally. Seems like common sense. But medical device instructions are still required to be on paper. Would you support changing that requirement?
Senator, my understanding is that's a requirement set by Congress, and I would be more than happy to work with you and members of Congress to take a look at that.
You have an opinion on it?
I've heard arguments on both sides. One thing that people have raised is that on one hand, it may be a waste of paper. It's a lot of paper. On the other hand, seniors may not go to a website to look at the information. So I think there are arguments on both sides. I would welcome the opportunity to work with you on reforming.
Thank you. I yield back.
Senator Banks, thank you. Senator Also Brooks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Dr. Makary.
Good morning.
Good to see you here. You know, I'm going to just feed off of something my colleague just mentioned, some words that I think are significant. He said the medical establishment is condescending to the American people, and I'd like to offer that, unfortunately, because this administration has been so reckless in the way that it has handled civil servants, I believe they've been very condescending to many of them as well, and they are, for the most part, many of them are my constituents who work in institutions like Johns Hopkins and who are serving the people. And many of the actions of this administration have been quite chaotic and confusing. So I want to just draw you to a few things. The committee staff raised last week a memo that was put out by OPM, and this memo directed agencies to dramatically reduce staff. And then they reversed themselves, and I'm not sure whether you've seen the latest guidance from OPM this week, which backtracked that directive to fire employees, instead said that they should, they clarified by saying that decisions to fire should be left to individual agencies. And so I'd like to just ask you, given this updated guidance, whether we have your assurance here today at this hearing that you will not arbitrarily fire employees at FDA given the new guidance.
First of all, Senator, good to see you, and I enjoyed our conversation, and I'm very proud to work at Johns Hopkins in the state of Maryland. And I'm a big believer in the professional career staff at the FDA, which is also located By and large, most of the employees are in Maryland. And so you have my promise that if confirmed, I will do my own independent assessment on personnel. I welcome input on efficiencies at the agency. At the same time, I want to make sure that the scientists and food inspectors and staff central to the core mission of the agency have all the resources they need to do their job well.
Thank you. And as you mentioned, there are so many valuable members. FDA does a tremendous service for our country. They handle, for example, drug safety, as you know. When we think about reviewing medical devices, and you mentioned infant formula, where the men and women who are designated as the people who would make sure that those items are safe are the ones who've been terminated. So I would like to know whether you would commit then to rescinding the termination of scientists who were working, for example, to address the bird flu.
As Senator, I was not involved in any of those personnel decisions, but if confirmed, I will certainly do an assessment.
Okay, you'll go back and look at those terminations.
Happy to, Senator.
Okay, thank you, as well as the termination of their individuals in FDA's food division, the people who keep our food safe. And so you would commit then to going back and looking at those terminations to make an independent assessment.
Of course, happy to.
Okay, and in the same vein, I wonder whether you realize that many of FDA's salaries, you may already know this, are paid in large not by taxpayers, but by user fees. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I am, Senator.
And so the concept that the reason to terminate these employees is to save taxpayer dollars is one that's based on a premise that is largely not true, since we use the user fees for many of the salaries. And that being the case, I wonder whether you would commit then to rehiring their 100 employees who were fired from FDA's Tobacco Center, which is 100% funded by user fees. Will you commit to going back and looking to rehire the 100 who were terminated?
Senator, if an employee has not logged onto their VPN in 2 years, then I don't want to rehire that individual. But if there are people that deserve a look, of course, I'm happy to look at that.
Right, we're talking about, again, there's a big lie out there that says these civil servants are lazy, they are shiftless, they don't show up. That is by and large not true. So asking you if you would go back and look at the ones who have been summarily terminated without cause. And your answer to that has been yes, you will go back and make your own independent assessment.
I will do an assessment if confirmed, Senator. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, on Tuesday, DOJ made the GSA release a list of over 400 government buildings that they want to dispose of, and many of these are in White Oak campus, which is in Maryland. One of them is in a building called Building Number 1, and I wonder whether you're familiar with Building Number 1.
I'm not familiar with the numbering of the buildings, Senator.
Well,
I'm
that's where
sorry.
your office would be, and that's one of the buildings that that DOJ has put on the list to close, shutter, and close up. And so again, just pointing out that many of these decisions are arbitrary, that they harm the work that we do and harm the American people, and just wanted to ask you if you would be committed to making decisions that make sense and that do not eliminate the FDA.
I believe in common sense and trusted science, and if confirmed, you have my commitment to do an assessment of personnel, to look at efficiencies. I welcome the input of any organization, of any individual member of Congress, from the administration and the DOJ team as well, to figure out how the government can be more efficient.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Dr. Makary. I'd like to submit for the record a Washington Post article referenced by Help Committee witness and abortion survivor Melissa Oden regarding a woman who took mifepristone twice, including once obtaining it online and taking outside the FDA's 10-week indication window. She still delivered her baby. While FDA has conducted safety studies on the product, I'm not aware that they've studied any safety outcomes related to a child who might still be born. As a physician, sending women abortion pills without a complete evaluation of the gestation of her pregnancy or checking for an ectopic pregnancy is clearly a safety issue. And that's why I would urge Dr. Makary to return to the REMS policy in place during the first Trump administration, requiring an in-person visit. With that, this concludes our hearing, and I'll just say that I know your family is incredibly proud of you, and I just thank them for being here as well. Believe me, you're on for a ride. So thank you for volunteering along with the doctor. For any senators who wish to ask additional questions, questions for the record will be due tomorrow at 5 p.m. This concludes the hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.